Welcome to episode 334 of the DFO Rundown, brought to you by Fountain Tire, where they specialize in tire and auto service. And you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service, because at Fountain Tire, you will get both. They'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. You need new tires, maybe your engine's got a little rattle, stop in at Fountain Tire, they'll sort you out. And right now, you can save up to $225 on 4 select tires, including Goodyear, up until December 14th. Plus, save an additional $50 or more on any service of $150. Stop in a Fountain Tire, or even easier, make an appointment at fountaintire.com. Happy Thursday, November 7th. I'm Jason Gregor, as we welcome in Frank Seravalli to the pod. Frankie, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know. Interesting time in this country the last few days. I'll say that. A lot of people seem to be triggered.
Yeah, there seems to be. I don't know. It's everywhere in North America. I don't think it's much different in Canada. So it's it's a strange time in North America. We got a lot of things great, and then a lot of things that are disaster. But what can you do? So wish them all the best. Hopefully they make good decisions. That's all you ask for. Decisions that benefit most people. I'm sure most people that have no care about politics here, they get enough of it everywhere else, so we won't be touching on that. Let's touch on something, a comment, Frank, that definitely stirs people. That was rather interesting. It's only November 7th. Technically, I guess less than a month into the season for all the teams who started in North America, and one team was the belle of the ball in the offseason. Everyone was like, "Oh, they added a few nice slippers that fit." And now suddenly it's like, hey, if we don't get going, we're going to go into a rebuild. Like Barry Trotz, obviously he's trying to shake things up in Nashville a little bit, get the attention of his players. But I found his comments very interesting, to say the least. And I think it's clearly a little bit of a shot to say, hey guys, like, let's get going here. We didn't sign all these guys and make these deals for us to be in last place in the Central Division.
I mean, look, context is important here. So where did this come from? 102.5 The Game in Nashville is where Barry Trotz said in a radio interview, quote, "If we don't get it going, then I'm going to start our rebuild plan." The first thing I think of when I hear that is that's a GM trying to send a message to his team to try and get them in gear. Do I think that's actually what he meant? If that's actually a possibility? There is no rebuilding. This team is what it is for the next foreseeable future now. They locked that in this summer when they spent $100 million. That's a fact. And we went through this in the pod on Monday. Philip Forsberg, 30, Steven Stamkos, 34, Jonathan Marchessault, 33, Ryan O'Reilly, 33, Gustav Nyquist, 35, Roman Josi, 34, Brady Shea, 30, Luke Schenn, 35, UC Saros, 29. They're not going anywhere. They are what they are. So there is no rebuilding. And what I would say is, look, it's still early. I think this team is much better than they've shown, but they have key deficiencies at the center position. And I really wonder if, and this is someone who was a believer in Nashville to start. I thought they'd finish second in the Central with the talent that they added. I wonder if it was too much too soon, adding these pieces without the proper support and structure in place to be a successful team.
Yeah, well, the center ice, and I like Ryan O'Reilly. I think, you know what, he's a really good second line center. There's no question. But yeah, they lack a.
No, let me stop you right there. On a contending Stanley Cup team, Ryan O'Reilly's a 3C.
You think he's a third center?
That's what the Maple Leafs brought him in to be a couple years ago. 3C.
Yeah.
That's truly look, I love Ryan O'Reilly. At 33, he doesn't have the wheels to keep up.
Yeah, you could be right. You could be right.
On a really good team. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. He can't be your one, and Juuso Parssinen can't be your two.
Tommy Novak might be your 2. Heck, he might be your 1 right now in Nashville. And so that's their problem. And the other issue, Frank, is you just outlined all of their ages, and you look at the contracts, right? Like Stamkos and he's got 4. Marchessault has 5. It's signed a 5-year deal, so his contract doesn't end until 29. Stamkos is 28. Forsberg is 30. Roman Josi is one of the guys who ends the soonest at 28 as well. And then you got Saros at 30 and Brady Shea at 31. So I guess like some of those guys, I wonder if Nashville, if it does continue to flounder, different GM, but a few years ago they traded Ekholm with a lot of term left on his deal. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, geez, Ekholm he's kind of
that's because they were rebuilding. That's why this is so incongruous and not really different GM because Barry Trotz was already in the building then.
Yeah,
he had a seat at the table next to David Poile.
Yeah. So my point is, I like to shake it up. Like they clearly need a center. So that's the problem is if you look at their guys, the one guy who probably could get them a really good center would be Roman Josi. If they wanted to make a deal, right? Like that.
But why would you so much of their offense runs through Roman Josi?
I agree. So that's the challenge though, because you're not going to, I don't see them getting a top end center for a winger. Right? Like teams don't really do that. Usually. Like I'm trying to think of and it's rare that even teams trade really good guys for good guys. Like I still think if I look back to the Heatley Hossa, have we even seen a trade of really good players straight up?
I'm still trying to process you saying trade Roman Josi. He's their captain. So much it's not possible.
No, I said he's the only guy that could get you a top end center. So that's their challenge. They don't have any, how are you going to get the top end center? They don't have a lot of pieces to do it. How do they address their biggest weakness? I don't see how they can.
Yeah, I think that's the answer is they can't.
I know that was my point of the one guy that could is the guy you wouldn't want to trade.
Yeah, my head exploded. I think when you said trade Roman Josi, it took me a second to compose myself.
Hey, buddy, listen properly. I said that's the only guy that could get you that player. There's a difference. So, and that's the challenge for them, right? And unless they got to hope that that Tommy Novak really develops into that guy.
He's 27.
Yeah,
Where's
that's my point. There's lots of late bloomers, but
he had 2 really good years, 17 and 18 goals, 45, 49 points. He's not a 1C.
Oh, well, there's first of all, true 1Cs, there might be 15, 17.
Yeah, something like that.
So heck, they'd want him to develop into a 2C. Maybe. If you're a 55-point guy, you are kind of a 2C, not necessarily a top end one, but you're definitely a 2C if you're a consistent 50-point player in today's NHL.
Yeah, but my only point was 27 years old. He's not. How much developing is there left to do?
So what do they do then in Nashville?
Pray, hope,
that
somehow you find a way to not be as much of a perimeter team. Steven Stamkos gets more comfortable, starts scoring. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot else you can do.
Yeah, they're tied with Philly for dead last. It's not a good spot at all for the Preds. And you look at Stamkos is minus 10. And I know it's not the best stat all the time, but still he's dash 10 and he's got 6 points in 13 games. And 2 of them came when he played his former team. So I understand that sometimes it takes guys a while to get comfortable in a new environment.
That's just what I assumed, right? Is that he's just not comfortable.
Yeah. So there's pressure there, but Barry Trotz can say one thing, but here's the challenge, Frank, when you come out and say that, and then your team continues to struggle, are you now forced to make that plan, or you just be patient? And because I don't know how you free up your rebuild, because the only way to do a proper rebuild, and we've outlined this many times in the pod, it is pain and it is 8 years. Like there's very quick, you can retool maybe by having one bad year. Remember Philly did it the one time. They tanked out, got injured, and then they went out and got Hartnell and Kimo Timonen, and boom, they turned things around very quickly, right? That was a one-time thing. If you want to go in a rebuild, like I saw Montreal, people in Montreal are oh, geez, it's year 4. And I'm like, you're halfway in. You're only halfway through your rebuild right now in Montreal. I hate to say it to Habs listeners, but that's just the truth. They're halfway there, man. They're not. People were talking about them competing this year, and I'm like, what? How? It's year 4. They can't defend to save their life right now.
Do you know which team I'm actually most concerned about in the NHL right now? The Anaheim Ducks.
In what sense?
They look lost. This is a team that has a ton of young talent that should be taking a step forward, that not only are they in the same world as a lot of these other teams in terms of record and points percentage that we're talking about, Montreal, Chicago, not far off from Nashville and Philly. I think there's a real chance that Greg Cronin ends up being the first coach fired this year in only his second season on the job.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me a team that's looked as lifeless as a 5-1 shellacking in Vancouver the other night.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, Frank. You look at the Ducks and they got 10 points.
Against
Lukas Dostal has been unbelievable to keep those games tight. Like he's 4-4-2. He's got a .930 save percentage. They're getting absolutely shelled, and he's back there looking like he's Dominic Hasek for a short period of time, which is great. Like his numbers are off the charts good. But you can't expect your goalie to bail you out like that. Like what happens when he comes and is like maybe normal and has like a 910 or a 915? How bad are they getting beat? That's good. It's a fair point. Well, when you look at the struggles there, and it's another reminder. Like I'm all for youth. I understand why teams do it, but too much of it, Frank, is it leads to losing, and then I think it leads to losing confidence, and kids get frustrated.
That's not their issue. Too much of it. That's not what I look at with this team. I think this team has no pulse. I think they've been beaten down there. I really do.
Oh, so you think they've got too much of a like a drill sergeant head coach?
Yes. And I mean, how else do you explain Trevor Zegras 3 points in 12 games? How else do you explain a Van team the other night that kind of sleptwalked to start the game, takes a lead, and the Ducks just roll over? Why? How else do you explain why watching the Sharks and Ducks consecutively, the Sharks have 3x the energy of the Ducks? Would anyone argue that the Sharks have more talent than the Ducks?
No.
I'm telling you, I don't think there's a more concerning rebuild situation than what we're seeing in Anaheim.
Okay, so the coach is too harsh. Is that on par with the GM, right? Does the GM say, "Hey, wait a sec, this is not why I want us to develop our young guys by nurturing them"? Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So that's the vision that he wanted, was someone to be harder on these guys. Okay, is that not a concern then, right? Or now here's the thing:
it's a major red flag for me. I just don't think that. 2024. I don't think that's the answer. Let alone at a time when you are still rebuilding and a lot of losing is expected.
So it's all about learning in life, whether you're GM, coach, media person, plumber, I don't care. Is there potential where the GM realizes, okay, you know what? This isn't the way, it's not going to work. Or does he dig in and be like, no, we're going to continue? So if he does replace his coach, Frank, it would have to be with a completely different, more of a, not necessarily younger coach, but somebody who relates to the young players, who's going to be firm but nurturing at the same time.
I don't know the answer to that question. I'd love to be able to answer it for you, but I don't know Pat Verbeek, don't have a relationship with him. And everyone that I know that does says that he can be a stubborn guy. I don't know that he's going to let the players off the hook.
Yeah, well, that'll be a challenge. Now, you had Trevor Zegras on your as a trade option back last
He's
February,
still very
March.
much a trade option.
Yes. So, you got some guys who aren't happy. Now here, it's funny that you say the Ducks because I have a little fun stat for you, Frank. So Cutter Gauthier this season here, he has had, he's got 31 shots on goal. He's missed the net 36 times, and then he's had 15 shots blocked. So out of 82 shot attempts, only 31 have gone on net, right? So he's shooting from everywhere, but he's got 36 misses. Now, if you do the 36 misses, that's 3 per game. So he's on pace for like 246. The NHL record is Ovi at 220 for most missed shots. Like, this guy's missing shots at a level you just don't see very often. And Ovi is the only guy who's ever been over 200, in fact, in the NHL since they started tracking it. So, there's a sign of a young guy who has the puck a lot. Like, that's a lot of shot attempts for a young player. And I know you're super high on him. And if you look at, he's obviously had the puck a lot, but his radar is off. Like, 36 shots missed the net already, 31 on goal. And it's something to follow for the Ducks. And there's, as a guy squeezing the stick too tight, you can go through all the old adages you want. But it's a stat that really jumped out to me for Cutter Gauthier's early start.
What do you think Cutter Gauthier's expected goals are this season?
Well, he has 0. I'm going to guess with that many shots, probably like 5.3.
4.23.
Okay.
And it's 66th among all 699 skaters.
Yeah, he's getting chances.
He's in the top 10% in expected goals for this season. Those numbers according to Stathletes.
Yeah. So
66th in the league as a rookie.
And that's why I said, man, like when I was going over some stats just the other day, looking at things that kind of jump out early in the season, that was the one I kind of stumbled on. I was like, Cutter Gauthier, this is right. But yeah, 36 misses. Like it now, Matthew, like guys,
to me, like I view that as stud player squeezing the stick too hard, trying to get his first NHL goal. Yeah. Once he gets one, I bet you everything changes.
Well, he'll probably hit the net more. I wholeheartedly agree. Right. That's what I said. 82 shot attempts in 12 games. Right. Like that guy, he has the puck a lot. So, that in itself, maybe it frees it up because, hey, we've seen veteran players, Frank, go 10, 12 games without a goal. And these are guys who've scored a lot. And when they finally score, it's a massive relief. I can't imagine what it is for a rookie. Probably the first time ever in his life, he's gone 12 games without a goal. I guarantee you that. I don't care what level he's played at. I don't think he's ever gone 12 games without a goal. And so it's hard. It wears on players way more than you think. And it's just a matter of trying not to, but it's a lot easier to say, oh, don't let it bother you. It's the easiest thing to say because it's harder to do.
Yeah. Well, something has to change in Anaheim. I'm a firm believer in that. This is not
Are you coach watch is on in Anaheim?
He would be on my list. Again, that's no one telling me that. That's just me reading the situation. Think about how bad the numbers are with Dostal.
Yes, that's what
playing as well as he is. Like,
yeah.
And by the way, like, yeah.
Dostal's playing like Shesterkin right now. If you look at their numbers,
he's better. No one's seen more shots in the league, and he's got a 930 save percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's good for Dostal. Not
good for the Ducks long term. That with him at 24 years old playing the way that he is, and
kind of at that age where.
Well, but look at his career numbers though on a really bad team prior to this season. He's got 67 games under his belt in the NHL at a 902 save percentage with a bad team in front of him.
Yeah. So
a bottom 5 team. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And the positive for the Ducks is when you look at, so through 12 games, Mason McTavish 1, Cutter Gauthier 0, Trevor Zegras 1, Frank Vatrano 1. Like they got lots of guys who have more scoring potential there than they're showing by. I would buy that if they were in a
an environment conducive to success.
No. But my point is that if the environment changes, like I think they have more skill than they're showing. So it's guys maybe not playing up to their potential for a variety of reasons. If a change is made, there's still belief and hope that you can be a lot better.
How about this stat? Dostal, high danger, scoring chance, save percentage, 881.
Yeah, that's high.
Most guys are in the 700s.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I don't know if you've watched some of those games. Like he has made some unbelievable saves, and so not only you say it's not a great environment, clearly the system they're playing is not conducive to winning. You can't give up that many quality chances. You just can't do it. You're not going to win. So, and they're obviously not, right? So they with 10 points in 12 games. A few other quick early stats for you, Frankie. Nathan McKinnon the other day joins Gretzky. Anytime he joins Gretzky in a category and it's just the two of you, it's a pretty good category. He's only the second player in NHL history to have a multiple 13-game scoring streaks to start the season. He's got 25 points. He just put up a 5 spot, his first game ever with 5 apples in a game. And remember, he scored 140 points last year, Frank. Do you know how many points he had in his first 10 games last year?
30?
9.
9?
Yes. He had 9 points in the first 10 games and then scored 130 in his next 70.
Wow.
He's already off. He's got 25 points this year. Like him and Kucherov,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So it's you look at McKinnon and another 140 point season. He might push for 150, which is crazy to think. But the start he's off to it at 25 points already in 13. It's not outrageous.
I'm really sad though that Cale Makar is banged up. I mean, again, for some perspective, Cale Makar is on again early on, but on pace.
Yes.
145 points as a defenseman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was on pace to challenge Orr and Coffey for the 139, 138 points that those two guys had.
But to be banged up on a team that's already thin, just brutal. Yeah.
Now, how banged up is he? I haven't seen a latest report.
They've kept it super quiet. I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, that wasn't good. Now, speaking of young D-man, Quinn Hughes, third fastest in fewest games to get to 300 points. He had 376. Only Brian Leach, 368, and Bobby Orr, 346. Made it quicker. You know what? Pretty dynamic defense when they got in Vancouver. Captain obvious, but still, it's always good pointing out when you're on a level that good of a start to your career. I think it's worth noting. Also, a rare feat, Frank, for Bowen Byram the other day for the Sabres. He scored a goal in the first 30 seconds of consecutive periods. It's only ever happened 4 times in NHL history. Brandon Saad did it in 2019. Mike Peluso. Remember Peluso and the Devils? Tough guy, super emotional when he was on the bench when they won the Stanley Cup. He did it in 1992. And Mark Curtin in 1981. That's a name, honestly, Frank. And I studied a lot. I had Mark Curtin was not a name that popped to the top of my head. So kudos to him in a very obscure category. And then lastly, if we're prorating numbers, Evan Bouchard. So a few years ago, one of my favorite nicknames ever for a player is I called Andre Sekera the shin pad assassin because that guy could hit more shin pads than anybody. And Evan Bouchard has had 55 of his shots blocked so far this season. The record, now, of course, again, this is only being tracked in the salary cap era, so got to take that for what it's worth. Although I don't think they ever block shots as much as they do in this era, so it's probably 296 by Brent Burns is one that right now Bouchard is on pace for like 340. He can't get shots through. It's unbelievable. 55 block shots in 14 games.
That's not, yeah. All I can think about is Evan Bouchard just standing there watching Jack Eichel last night. Oh. Well, like, what's up with that?
Yeah, well, the quick transition, and then it's just like, oof.
The quick transition. How about like just turn, pivot, watch guys skate past you, make no effort to get back, and then
dude, what about the winning goal? Did you see the winning goal? It was a 2-on-4, one guy in the corner and Ekholm, and it was a 50-50 puck battle. They go to battle for the puck, right? And I don't know if they both hit it simultaneously. It pops up. The other Oiler players are just kind of like coasting. They're out in men. It was a men's league back check. And that allows Hannafin to walk.
I think men's league back check is generous. That is an assault on men's leaguers everywhere.
Yeah. Wow.
It is.
Wow. It was awful.
Tyler played for the Chiefs. What's his team name? I mean, that like they are all offended right now.
Nah. We'll bring him on in a second. I'm guessing he would say, you know what? I think that's probably an accurate back check. It's like and you can tell when a guy, you're not doing anything. It's called upright. You stand up straight. You lose all your momentum. You cannot push off. And look at you saw.
Did you have a name for that? What'd you call it? You were like, it's called, and then you just said stand up straight.
Yeah, well, no, it's because I'm trying to coach my kids out of it because
Tyler just said in the chat, if someone on the Chiefs back checked like that, I'd key their car. Yeah. See?
So he's saying they back check harder. We might have to go get some film of that. I need to see some examples of the Chiefs back checking. So does your Remchuk thing? I thought your Remchuk needed a map in his own zone. So we'll see. But hey, if you're in men's league, let's be honest. If you're a goalie and you're a defender, you know that back pressure is a thing of the past. And unless it's a playoff game, I do find in the men's league, there's guys will suddenly back check a little bit more. And there's even the few guys that will try to block a shot in men's league playoffs. It's a rarity, but it happens. So shout out to all the shot blockers in men's league because you know who you are. There's a few of you.
I don't know. I'm thinking about dipping my toe back into the men's league world.
Oh yeah,
I've been in conversations with a local squad that does it right.
Oh.
They've got a hot dog roller in the locker room following the game.
A what?
Yeah, a hot dog roller. You know, the cooker.
Like at the convenience store, the thing that rolls.
You go in the locker room right after the game, and the hot dogs are spinning.
I mean, so they got like all the condiments laid out, and then do they have like who's in charge of the beer? Like, do you have one guy? Because we used to have
last week they brought a grill and did pizzas.
Jesus,
fresh made pizzas for
right. And then is there one guy like we used to have on our team? The Onion used to be in charge, and he actually called the cooler R2D2. He had it, and so it was one of the early years where his cooler had it, so he'd carry his bag, but then his cooler was like a suitcase because it had the handle, so you could wheel it in because you're not going to carry the cooler in. You got to wheel it in, and man, he took that job very serious. But old R2, he would wheel in, and sometimes R2 would be. Oh, well, think about it, buddy. There's in men's league, there's a few things. Like being a good player helps, but being a good guy in the room is more important. The dressing 100%. Room is the number one thing why you play men's league.
100%.
Yeah. And it's the thing, like when NHL players say that's what they miss the most, I get it. Because in men's league, if you look back in the teams you played for, I barely remember, like unless something really funny happened on the ice, or one of our guys once there's a brawl because a guy on the other team ran him, so we all remember that one. But most of the other times you can't tell anything, but you can remember 10 to 15 to 25 stories in the room in a heartbeat. Like that's what I miss. Like that was the best time, man. Like you used to want to I remember we'd have a men's league game. I was at the men's league game an hour and 15 early just because I wanted to shoot the breeze in the room.
Yeah, I played with the same guys for a period of 5 years. And just thinking back to the time we won the ship and took the trophy to the local peeler bar. That was unbelievable.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, we did that. We didn't go to the peeler bar. We went to like a nightclub bar and had it around, and it was comical, right? But the great part was lots of other guys in the bar had done the same thing. So they're all respectful of it. They're like, oh, this is pretty good, and it's kind of fun because, you don't
and I'm having flashbacks
serious.
Now. I want to play again.
Oh, buddy, that is.
I might even be willing to like drive and handle the late start just for that. Like I'm kind of like the juices are flowing.
Now, how late of starts is it in Philly for men's league?
The very earliest you could play is like 9:50.
9:50.
Most are like 10:30, 10:40 starts.
Yeah. I'll say my favorite men's league was when we played in the summer. And you got to go to the rink in your shorts and sandals, and the games were 6:30, 8, or 9:30. The latest was 9:30.
It was summer, though.
Dude, it was unreal. Like we'd sit in the parking lot afterwards. You could have a beer, right? Open down the hatch. It was beautiful out. Like it was awesome. And we used to have games on Friday nights. So dude, you'd have a 6:30 Friday night game and you're like, not many of those, but you plan well ahead. And it was like a team party every time. It was on.
Yeah, you're sliding right into the weekend.
Oh God, it was great. So summer, because you play men's league sometimes, and obviously here it's a little chilly. Like you got a 9 o'clock game, you get out of the rink, it's -30. You're just like, this blows. So that was the great part about summer. I was later, it's near the end of my men's league career, but I have to say the summer men's league was probably my favorite.
This doesn't mean as much. When you win the ship in the summer, it doesn't.
Oh, dude, the summer had lots of good players. You had lots of pros that would come back in our league. Lots of guys playing university. I found the league was better. So it's good. Let's bring in the member of the Chiefs, Tyler Yaremchuk. Ty, how you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. I was going to add in there, I'd key their car if someone back checked like that, except for me, I get a pass because I score. Right? That's how that works? No? All right. I got a new edition of Fill in the Blank.
Did you see who was not back checking? It was the guys who were supposed to score. That's what makes it worse.
Yeah, that is a good point. Fill in the Blank brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And you can sign up today and use the promo code NATION to get in on a huge range of markets. It doesn't matter what the month is around the NHL. People love trade talk, and you guys haven't done enough of it on this episode. So let me ask you, the next team in the NHL to make a trade is blank, Frank.
I think the odds-on favorite would be the Buffalo Sabres. They got to do something. I think at this point, even though it's early, there's a large enough sample size between this year and last year to say that what they have isn't working.
Who do you think they're going to move? Like, who would be your options?
Well, see, that's really the difficult part of the conversation, and the uncomfortable part of the conversation for Kevin Adams is that you have to give to get.
Yep.
And I think that part is lost on many fantasy GMs that want to sit there and play armchair GM, is who are you giving up? I would say of the players that come to mind, what about Jack Quinn? What about, I don't think Henry Jokiharju is moving the needle for anyone. So that doesn't really count as giving. I don't think you make this move now because you might really regret it, but what's happened to Dylan Cousins?
Yeah, you got to be patient with him, man. I think that would be.
But like his third season in the NHL, 31 goals, 68 points in 81 games. In his last 92 games, he's got a total of 51.
Yeah.
I know. I think at some point you have to ask the question, what happened to this kid? I'm not saying you trade him. I think that's a really tough one to give up, but where you gotta take someone off of this roster that has value. The list is not insanely long.
No, it is not. Like the one guy who is giving him like the best value by a mile is JJ Peterka. Like he's in his last year of his entry. No, I'm saying
he's been like the heartbeat of the team.
Oh God, no! I'm just saying, like, good for him. I'm looking for a positive. JJ Peterka, like that guy is setting himself up to cash in for a big contract this summer.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he is.
Who would you trade from the Sabres?
Well, there's a few untouchables. I'm not even going to mention them, but. Like, if you were looking at a guy who, like, if you were looking to shake it up, and like I see Bowen Byram's name out there a lot, and I think that's more of wish from other organizations. And I might not like it, Frank, but if I was looking to get a return, Matthias Samuelson's the one guy.
I don't think he's getting you a big return.
You don't think? Well, if you don't, then teams would be smart because and the reason if I was Buffalo, I'd be hesitant. We can go through the list of defensemen who get traded because you're frustrated with what they're doing. And man, they go somewhere else and they really pan out. And he's only 24. I'm pretty sure like he's still a young D-man. I wouldn't do it, but
dude, I didn't see it with them with this 7-year, $30 million deal. And I really don't see it now.
Yeah. Historically, we've seen more young D-men get moved who turn out to be really good than necessarily forwards. And so that to me, and I think it's because D-men still take a little bit longer to develop and organizations get impatient.
Not for nothing. He's also never played a full NHL season.
Yeah.
His career high in games played is 55. Last year he played 41.
Well, but yeah, like they don't have a lot of like options unless it's just a trade to try to,
shake it up,
shake things up. But
I think that's kind of what they need, but it can't just be like a little thing. I don't think to actually truly have an impact.
Yeah. I'm going to go, it's a good question. I'm going to go I think I will go, Frank thinks they might make a coaching change. I think they might make a trade. So I'll go with the Ducks.
Oh yeah. Add some vets into there. It's a decent answer as well. All right. Next one I got for you guys, a couple of players in contract years. Sam Bennett, he went to the Sam Reinhart School of Producing or getting paid. He's got 8 goals already on the year. So does Nikolai Ehlers. So fill in the blank. The one that's going to get paid the most out of those 2 pending UFAs is blank. Greg's.
Ooh, man. Like what Sam Bennett's so unique in the way he plays, his physicality. Now has he ever had 50 points? Like I know he's a point a game guy right now, but it's 13 games, right? Like I went through a lot of guys last year, had great starts, and it's hard to maintain it. If I was basing it on what they've done right now, I think it's actually pretty close. Now, Bennett, if he has a great year and finishes like that, because of his physicality and just relentlessness in his game, he probably would get more. So I would go with Bennett if he now, and I don't need him to be a point a game player. Like he's never scored 50 points. If he scores 60 points, he's still going to be 29 when his contract would kick in. So
how much of a premium are you going to pay on one really good year though?
Well, but I'd say it
would be a statistical outlier by a wide margin.
Yeah.
His previous career high in points is 49 and
28 goals, right?
Last year, 41, the year before that, 40. So if he gives you 50% more and gets to 60, how much of a premium are you paying?
Well, I didn't say how high it would get. I just think he still would get more than Nikolai Ehlers. Like, are they both around 6? Right? Like, do you think they get more than that?
6?
Yeah, 5.
Ehlers already makes 6. Ehlers is in the last year of a 7-year deal that paid him 6.
Yeah, but he's a 60. He hasn't had more than 62 points since like 2017. So
okay, but he's got 3 seasons of 60 points.
Yeah. No, he's more, but I guess
and he's definitely a way more. He gets you 25 goals every single year, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, I look at Sam Bennett and teams. The hard thing is,
I would make the argument, by the way, that Nikolai Ehlers has been perfectly paid at $6 million.
Sure,
perfectly.
I agree. So, but if you pay
not
him
an overpay,
more,
not an underpay.
Yeah, if you pay him more moving forward,
well, the cap's going up. You have to pay him more. It's like a cost of living increase. Think about it from an NHL perspective. It's a cola. You're getting a cola, bud.
Well, some guys maybe, but I think Sam Bennett. When you look at what wins in the playoffs, I think that's where Sam Bennett's value is. And I think some teams are going to, a competitive team would look at that and say, hey, yeah, he might only get his 55 points, right? Let's say, because if a team signs him, you got to sign him to be regularly in your top 6 all the time. And I think he can do that. But you know how it is, Frank, in contract years, you're bang on, but historically we've seen teams overpay guys. If you have the right year at the right time, you cash in. That's just how it is in the NHL. We've seen it time and time again. If he scores 65 to 70 points this season, he'll get paid.
I don't have any doubt that he will. Let me ask you another question. Which player is going to age better? Sam Bennett or Nikolai Ehlers? I don't think there's any question that it's going to be Ehlers. With all due respect to Bennett.
Healthy. Like, what are the odds he's
Bennett can't stay healthy. He's played 68 and 61 games the last 2 years. Not only that, but the style of play, because he is always in the mix, those guys kind of break down. They just do. Like it's fact of life.
Yeah, it's a good question because they both have been guys who have missed a significant. Like last year, Ehlers played the full season, which is the first time since 18 that he's done that. And he's missed, like the year before, he missed 37 games, then 20, then 10, 11, 20. Like, that's a good question, man. I think there's a fair concern with both about just, because Nikolai Ehlers, he's not a perimeter player either. Like he plays pretty hard. He's just a little bit smaller.
Man. I really struggle with this. I'm just looking. Like
what
Sam
term
Bennett,
do they get?
Well, that's another good one. But like, is Sam Bennett not a slightly bigger version of Brendan Gallagher? Like I'm just asking. Is he?
Yeah.
Like Brendan Gallagher is like, dude's been through the washing cycle too many times.
Yeah.
Their numbers are like crazy similar. Gallagher has been more productive. 33 goal season, 31 goal season, points in the high 40s, low 50s. But then look at this contract. It was the same thing that Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens worked themselves through leading into the pandemic. How could we possibly lose this guy? Look at how much he's an engine. Look at how much he could help us in the playoffs. All the same Sam Bennett questions. He's exactly the guy I had in mind when I asked the question, who's going to age better? He's just that Bennett has a bigger frame.
Yeah.
Might be able to withstand it more.
It would be a great question because they're both, their contracts are at the exact same time. They're both going to be 29. I think Ehlers is like 3 months older, but whatever. They're both 29. It would be great to say who plays more games in the term of their contract. Because both of those guys have missed 10, 15, 20 games fairly regularly. So
I think Ehlers is such a good skater. I think it's going to.
He is. I would agree with you on that.
It's going to benefit him. Such a better skater, I should say.
All right, next one I got. For wait, what were your guys' final answers again? Who's going to get paid more, Frank? That was the question.
I think Bennett's going to get paid more. I think I would pay Ehlers more.
Okay, Gregor, are you the same?
Yeah. Well, no, I thought Bennett would get paid more.
Okay, yeah. Bennett. All right. Last one I got for you guys. Our friends over at Bet365, they have a bit of a unique futures bet up there for the payout of plus 320. So just over 3-1. You can bet on this year's Stanley Cup winner being a team that's never won it before. So it gets you into some kind of bottom feeders. So you get Buffalo, Ottawa, Columbus, San Jose. You do get Utah and Seattle as well. The interesting teams you would get in this bet, and for reference, the Stanley Cup favorite right now is still the Oilers at 8-1. So for plus 320, you could get Vancouver, Minnesota, Nashville, and Winnipeg. I guess my question to you guys is, would you take that bet at plus 320? And the fill in the blank is, out of those four, Vancouver, Mini, Nashville, Winnipeg, blank has the best shot at the Stanley Cup, Jason?
Well, let's eliminate Nashville. Yeah. I would say
Nashville should have beaten Vancouver in that first round series last year.
No, I know, but last year. I'm just saying right now, today, I would take if it was the bet today and I got to put down a hundo, I would put it on Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, Winnipeg's obviously the choice out of that group. I think they're legit. But is plus 320 enough to make me want those four teams? That's the real question.
So Winnipeg is the highest of that bunch at 10-1. So if you
you'd be way better off if you think it's just Winnipeg to play Winnipeg at 10-1.
Yes.
Than bunching the four of them together, because the other ones are just nonsensical.
Vancouver.
I don't care that you give me Seattle and San Jose.
Buffalo.
And, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a sucker bet if I've ever seen one. Truly a sucker bet.
So, I did this bet for the Major League season this year, going into things, because I was looking at the NL and I was like, oh man, there's the Padres, and then the Brewers ended up making the playoffs, and it ended up almost kind of working. And then the Brewers obviously blew it to the Mets. But there was a moment in time there where I was like, I could have two teams in the Final Four.
No. You're never going to convince me that makes sense. The Yankees and the Dodgers end up being the two teams in the World Series. There wasn't like a close kind of, maybe something. It was like, come on.
The Padres almost beat the Dodgers. Come on. All right. Well, those are my 3 questions. I think it's an interesting bet. It's kind of a fun, unique twist on just betting on a Stanley Cup winner. You can also take the other side of it, which is that will it be a first-time winner? And it's no, but that's minus 450. So you'd have to wager $450 to win 100.
If I were going to take one of the two, that's the one I would take.
Yeah, take the flip side of it. All right. Well, there you go, boys. That is another edition of Fill in the Blank, brought to you by our friends at Bet365.
All right. One last thing before we run. I can't get this out of my head. And I said it yesterday on radio, just totally off the cuff. And now I can't stop thinking about it. The Seattle Kraken are the Western Conference version of the New York Islanders. True or false?
Oh, buddy, they can't score. If that's they got a lot of older guys. They do have a few young picks. Maybe that's the one difference, right? They've got Wright and Beniers.
They've got more upside, but neither one, like they don't have a superstar.
No,
they're mired in mediocrity. They don't really have a path forward to become an elite team that I see.
Yeah.
And it just kind of feels like more of the same. Like the Kraken are not really run any different than the Carolina Hurricanes were run under Ron Francis.
Yeah, it's funny because at the start of the year, remember we kind of had our list of teams that we said like no chance are they going to, be a playoff team. And, there's lots of those teams that, San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago. I had Philadelphia in that list. I had Columbus, and Columbus is the one team early on that's been great. But I still think ultimately that, Columbus.
But
they've come back down to earth. And I understand it. But I'd put the Islanders in that. No chance now with all their injuries, Frank. I think there's a team that we talked about earlier that you should look to make a trade. They should be trying, although they don't have necessarily a lot of tradable assets. And Seattle, I'd probably put in that list too. Because I don't see where their improvement comes from. As you mentioned, they don't have the offensive guys.
What's the path? That's my question.
Yeah. Jared McCann, he's having another very good year. Got to give him credit. Everly's having a solid season. But after that, it's just not a lot. Like getting Dunn back should help them. I understand it. But I go through that team, man, and I don't see a lot. And really, if you're trying to move off guys, now maybe if some teams find guys, because they have a lot of guys who have 1 year left after this on their deal. So if you trade for them, you get 2.
Who's getting someone excited?
Yeah, well, McCann, I think, would get you very excited.
That's okay, but you don't score. You're going to trade the guy who scored 75 goals the last 3 seasons?
Well, because if you're not competitive, why not? And by the time his contract's done,
that's not an acceptable answer in that market. This is why their conundrum exists, is they're on the clock. It's only a matter of time until the NBA is in Seattle. Remember when the Kraken were formed and there's this amazing hoopla in the city and the arena is beautiful, all those things, but there were a ton of studies saying the discretionary income that's left in this market is tapped.
Okay.
Now you're going to stretch that even further by adding, if you've got families that say we can buy tickets to one team in the winter, how many of them are picking the Kraken over the new NBA team? It was a basketball city first a long time ago. I like that they went out and spent this summer. It was a great commitment to what they're trying to do. And I really like the player. I think he's a great player. But is Chandler Stevenson moving the needle in your marketplace?
No. And and I know that people, Seattle fans, what do you mean you're trading our best player? I get it. But Jared McCann, the reason, Frank, I think you can get a lot for Jared McCann right now. He's got this year plus 2 more at only $5 million. He has he's top 25 in goals since the start of the 22-23 season. Right. And it's not like he's playing with a ton of, like, he's a legit top 6 forward in my mind. No question. I'd argue he's a top line player for a lot of teams, not necessarily a center, but winger. I look at McCann and I think lots of teams, because his price point of salary makes him very attractive. Agreed. And if you're Seattle, if you can get a team that's got some young guys and you're like, hey, it's because we still think the strength of our team is still a few years away from getting better. Right. They hope Matty Beniers is infinitely better in 2 years than he is right now. Right. So you have to have a long-term plan, because if you're going to try to put it together with Band-Aids and Scotch tape, which is what they done, it ain't working.
Well, I agree with you, but I just think that further compounds the problem of how do they get better sooner rather than later? All you're doing with trading McCann is just extending the clock. You're resetting it.
Yeah. And maybe that's the start of moving a few guys to say, okay, like we try to go into a short, because some team you can do it on, because first of all, they're not like, they had the 1 year as a playoff team. So, and it was kind of it was the perfect storm.
But if you're rebuilding in year 4 of an expansion start franchise, doesn't that just mean that your start was a failure?
Yes. And I think it was. Their approach, Frank, from the get-go was they went out and there was a few, they could have took a few bigger name players who were better skilled, and they went for the less skilled because, cap hit, whatever. Their team they drafted from the get-go was built to be at best a middling team. Now they had a perfect storm. They won in game 7, right? Everything was great. It was 1 year. You're not having all of your forwards score 15 goals, right?
It was 1 year in which everyone outkicked their coverage.
They all, like, so many guys had best years of their life at that point. It was awesome. Great. Everybody,
it was almost the worst thing that could have happened.
Yes, it was, because it was misleading. And so I think you have to be honest with yourself. They can't continue to compound their problem and hope that, look what we did 2 years ago. Who cares?
Put yourself in the ownership's shoes of the Kraken, and your GM walks in and says, I want to trade the guy who scored 75 goals the last 3 seasons.
But the NBA team that comes, Frank, they're not going to be any good, are they?
It doesn't matter. It's you need a foothold in your marketplace. Pretty soon you're going to be a 4-sport town.
Right. But don't you think the foothold, by doing what you're doing and being average, and actually below average, that doesn't score, that's even worse.
All I'm doing is playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying, tell me why someone's going to want to hear that.
Yeah. Well, hey man, sometimes the truth hurts. We're not good. That's the truth. We're not good enough, and we have to find a way to get better. Not this year, but we got to make an astute move for some guys that we think got potential. We can get a 2-for-1, maybe a 3-for-1, and away you go. Because at $5 million, Frank, Jared McCann is an unbelievable value player.
Yeah. And I like some of the pieces that they have coming. They just need to figure it out. Jagger Firkus, awesome. Ryan Winterton's probably going to be their first call up. I mean, they've got some interesting pieces.
Yeah, that'll be good. Well, that's a good pod. Shout out to all of the back checkers in men's league. You're the rarity,
dude. Shout out to the guy bringing the hot dog roller.
Yeah, and the guy whoever runs R2, your cooler's name, whatever it is. Yeah, I will say that's next level. A hot dog roller, that is next level.
I mean, you come off the ice, you got a cold beer in your hand and a dog. You kidding me,
dude? You're taking a 10-minute misconduct, so you're the first guy off the ice. 100%.
I might be anyway.
Oh yeah, Frank the prick. Shocking.
Yeah.
That was the rundown brought to you by Fountain Tire. Go to fountaintire.com right now. You can get a select 4 tires, save $225, including Goodyear at Fountain Tire.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.